Hey there, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Folks, we know that we are a diversion at this scary, confusing time. So Matt and I are happy to bring you Horse Center every week. Matt, what do we have this week?
We got the social distancing edition of Horse Center, Brian. But aside from that, we got a big card of races at Gulfstream Park. Maybe their last day of racing.
We'll see. Saturday, big card, Florida Derby, Gulfstream Park Oaks, plus many other big names. Watch it all right now here on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm okay, Brian. I'm here in New Jersey. Staying inside most of the day.
That's true, Matt. For the sake of social distancing, folks, Matt and I have decided to film this edition of Horse Center about 750 miles apart. We're hoping that's enough. No, in all seriousness, folks, I know this is a difficult time for everyone. Matt and I are a diversion, hopefully a pleasant diversion to what's going on out there. But we got a big show, Matt. We got Gulfstream Park, and I think it's an absolutely terrific card. We're hoping that Gulfstream Park at least remains open through Saturday because Florida Derby Day is really an excellent day of racing.
Yeah, Brian. Wow, they got 14 races on the card, and if you're printing out your past performances, you better have a lot of paper in the tray. 11 stakes races, as I counted them, Brian. A grade 1, 2 grade 2s, and 3 grade 3s. They're coming out of the woodwork. I think the trainers think this might be their last shot for a while.
That's true. It makes sense that there's a lot of horses, a lot of good horses willing to run Saturday at Gulfstream with closures happening left and right. As of now, Gulfstream Park, Oaklawn Park, Santa Anita Park are still open. Florida Derby Day on Saturday. Santa Anita Derby Day a week from Saturday. We'll see if that still gets to happen. But for now, we're going to dive right into the Florida Derby, Matt. Full field, terrific field, but we have to start with the 7-hole occupied by Tiz the Law.
Yeah, Brian, the big favorite. I was a little surprised maybe, but 6-5 on the morning line seems low, but I guess it could happen because Tiz the Law has been pretty darn good. It has been quite a while since his victory in the Holy Bull, however.
Yeah, although it's a normal progression, there's been no deviation from the plan for the Barclay Tag trained New York bred. This was the plan all along, and it looks to be like he's gotten to the Florida Derby in a good place, a good spot, Matt. 6-5 is low for the morning line, but on the other hand, you know me, I like to kind of poke holes at why a favorite might lose a race, but there's really little to poke holes at when it concerns Tiz the Law. He was really terrific at Saratoga and the Champaign. I think he had fair excuses when he lost, not by much, in the Kentucky Jockey Club last fall. Bad track, bad trip. Holy Bull, he was terrific, Matt, and you look at that Holy Bull where he collared Ete Indian pretty early in the lane. Now, he looked a little green down the lane. That's the only thing I can say, but he really had Ete Indian's number that day. And if you look at Ete Indian's 3 races, recent races at Gulfstream Park, they're terrific. So Tiz the Law looks like a tactical horse. He can be near the lead or a little farther off it. Just there's not much negative to say about this horse. 9 furlong shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I agree with your phrase that you couldn't find any way to poke holes in his form, and that's well said. I agree with that. Post position draw, right in the middle of the 12 horse field. So it's his horse. It's his race to win.
Yeah, and barring any bad racing luck, which can happen in a big field. But barring any bad racing luck, I think I have to be on the favorite on this one, Matt. But having said that, there are some really good horses in here who deserve a shot at Tiz the Law. And let's talk about some of the main chief contenders here, Matt. Let's move a couple spots out in the starting gate to Independence Hall. Now, Independence Hall lost his last race, Matt, but we know he is a talented horse. Remember what he did in the Nashua a few starts back.
Yeah, and as you said, he lost that race at the Sam F. Davis at Tampa Bay off of that behind Soleil Valente, who had that big run to win there. So Independence Hall, for me, has got a lot of question marks, and that's just because of that it's been a while since his last race, and his wins came in those races at Aqueduct. I give him a chance in here. It'll be interesting to see what kind of Independence Hall we get in the race. Is he going to be a little bit more mature, a little calmer in the paddock? A lot of interesting questions for that horse.
Yeah, a lot of questions, but a lot of talent, Matt. And don't forget that Sam F. Davis, he was the one that was chasing a very fast pace while Soleil Valente had the opportunity to really rally into the strong pace. Also, his connections have been saying that this track at Gulfstream Park, a less sandy track than Tampa Bay Downs, suits him better. He seems to get over the track better. That's what they're saying from his morning workouts there, at least at Gulfstream Park. So we're going to see Independence Hall, certainly a horse with a lot of talent and a dangerous horse. 9-2, third choice on the morning line. The next horse I want to talk to, Matt, going a little farther inside in the starting gate, coming from the 5 hole, is Gouverneur Morris. I liked what I saw in the morning line odds there. I'm kind of hoping that those hold a little bit true, at least, because he's 8-1 on the morning line, Matt. And I think this Son of Constitution has a big shot in here. His only start so far in 2020 was an allowance win, but I think it was probably an allowance win that is a little bit even better than it looks on paper.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Todd Fletcher, his trainer, has said the same thing. Also, that that allowance field was pretty good, and he saw everything he wanted to see from Gouverneur Morris in that race in his 2020 comeback. Remember, as a 2-year-old, he was second in the Breeders' Futurity behind Maxfield, the highly touted Maxfield, and the still highly touted Maxfield. So I agree with you. Gouverneur Morris is a horse that has potential to move ahead. I think he'll appreciate the added distance in this race. For me, he's one of my top choices behind Tiz the Law.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. In fact, he's my top choice behind Tiz the Law. Hoping for 8-1. That would, I think, be some sort of a gift. I think a lot of people don't see the impressive past performances that they see maybe with Ete Indian and Independence Hall, but Gouverneur Morris for a lot of reasons. Number one reason, Matt, is I think of the 4 favorites, he's the one that's going to be able to be a little farther off the pace, and I think that's probably a good thing because there looks to be a strong pace in this Florida Derby. Number 2, Todd Fletcher has his horses ready. Yeah, he's only had 1 race this year, but I think it was a nice race, and I think he's building towards getting better. The 9 furlongs, as you said, he finished that race over a very good horse and Untitled really well. Love the way he leveled off late in that Tampa Bay Downs allowance race. So I think 9 furlongs with a little bit of speed ahead of him should be right up his alley. Matt, I'm going to go out on a limb here, a huge limb, and say the winner of the Florida Derby will be a Son of Constitution.
That's a pretty good choice, Brian, because you got a quarter of the field covered there.
Quarter of the field, and we got Tiz the Law, Independence Hall, and Gouverneur Morris. So that is one strong first full crop for Constitution, and they're all here in the Florida Derby. The horse we haven't mentioned yet, Matt, is the horse that is the second choice on the morning line, Ete Indian. Now, he is breaking from the 12 hole, but if you remember the Fountain Youth, he broke from the outside post that day, really scampered out of the gate early, took over the race by the time they headed into the first turn, and from there he dominated.
Yeah, that's for sure. That was certainly the definition of a visually impressive performance in there. And I guess they're going to have to employ the same tactics in there with at Gulfstream Park. It is a very short run to the turn, and if they don't decide to not send, he's going to end up getting shuffled back a good bit. So I anticipate them trying the same thing. I don't know, Brian. those are the kind of performances that I find often are very hard to duplicate.
Right, hard to duplicate, but on the other hand, you look at his form this year. I for some reason, and this is my own bias, I want to like other horses better than Ete Indian. But I look for replays of his allowance win over Toledo, and then second, but a good second to Tis the Law and the Holy Bull, and then the way he won from the outside post, the way he romped down the lane in the Fountain of Youth. There's not much to like about what Ete Indian has been doing lately, but second choice on the morning line, again breaking even a little farther outside this time in the 12 hole, and a bunch of speed at 9 furlongs. I'm going to try to beat him for second or maybe even third in here, but certainly a horse to fear. Now, after the top four, Matt, I think there is a drop off, and there's a bunch we could mention in here. We could mention the horses that ran second and third last time to Ete Indian in the Fountain of Youth. But as seen on TV, third and Candy Tycoon second were a pretty long way behind the winner.
Yeah, they were. And I guess in that other echelon of horses, one that I would just mention is because he's getting a move to the rail, as seen on TV, has shown some speed in other races. Kelly Breen, horse was third in the Fountain of Youth, second in the Mucho Macho Man, should be able to get a ground-saving trip. Again, like you said, there's a lot of speed in there, but at 12-1 on the morning line, he's one of the other speeds that I'm interested in this race, because I too am going to take a stand against Ete Indian, and I'm just not going to use him in my exacta box.
Yeah, as seen on TV, you look at the form and you say, well, he ran that really bang-up race in the Mucho Macho Man where he just lost a heartbreaker at the wire. But on the other hand, I wonder if the Fountain of Youth just brought in a better horse. So I'm not really sure whether as seen on TV regressed last time and he's ready to bounce back, or if it was just a class starting to show itself as we move farther forward with these 3-year-olds. Yeah, he's one of the ones that could pop up. Rail draw, I am worried a little bit about the speed. I am also a little bit worried about the distance for as seen on TV. Although looking at Lucky, I have no problem with Sons of Looking at Lucky get the lead. How about Candy Tycoon, Matt, though, the other Fletcher, if you will, son of Twirling Candy? It took a while to break his maiden, but then when he did break his maiden, it was darn good. And he was the one finishing best behind Ete Indian that day in the Fountain of Youth. He's 20-1 on the morning line.
Yeah, that was absolutely a game performance by Candy Tycoon in there, in a race where he got carried wide a little bit, didn't get the best of trips. So maybe one that's going to benefit from the setup.
Yeah, and if you're looking beyond the four favorites, that might be the one that I like best. But on the other hand, I don't have a lot of confidence given how far he was behind Ete Indian and how strong the top four look. Some others in here, Matt Ajaweed, I thought he might have a big future at one point, but fourth in the Breeders' Futurity, second in the Remsen, third in the Sam F. Davis. He just doesn't quite look good enough against this class of horse. 9 furlongs with speed, maybe?
Yeah, I agree. But, bottom line for me with Ajaweed is that I just don't think he's a fast enough horse, particularly with the way this race looks like it's going to play. Hey, probably the last major runner from Kieran McLaughlin.
Very true. Very true. Kieran McLaughlin's training career coming to an end soon, Matt. There's more horses in here. I think more horses that might be pace. Disc Jockey's a lightly raced son of Bodemeister. Chivalry has been a pretty successful sprinter of late, but looking more like they're close or on the lead early, and that probably is a tough spot here in the Florida Derby, Matt. Florida Derby, bottom line for me, I like the favorite Tis the Law, and I like the fourth choice Gouverneur Morris. Those are my top two.
Yeah, Brian, I agree with you.
All right. Well, that was easy. There's no disagreement? We always disagree, Matt. No? All right.
No, maybe in the couple other races we're going to talk about.
There you go. All right. Well, let's move on. Speaking of other races, let's move on to the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Now, usually we're talking about this as a big prep for the Kentucky Oaks. As we know, like the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks will be postponed We're talking September. So if the Kentucky Oaks was coming up soon, some of the top contenders in there would be coming out of this field. Got to start with Tunnelist Shape, Matt, the daughter of Tunnelist. 5 for 5 in South Florida. She drew the 9-hole in here for trainer Saki Joseph, but 5 for 5. Enough said, I guess.
You got to say that, Brian. 5 for 5, and they have certainly been an impressive 5 for 5. First in the Devona Dale, first in the Forward Gal, first in the Hut. 60 points already in qualifying for the Oaks. This is a field. It ended up with a field of 12. And even 2 also eligibles in here going mile and a 16th. It's hard to fault the credentials of Tonalist Shape, but, Brian, win streaks don't go on forever. And we already saw it at the fairgrounds when the 5-race win streak of Finite came to an end. And I don't know. It might be the race to take a shot against this 5 for 5 record.
Yes, I am taking a shot against this 5 for 5 record. Matt, I'm with you again. And the reason, folks, is my current favorite top 3-year-old filly. She's certainly not rated number 1 or one of the very favorites for the Kentucky Oaks. Is still Spice is Nice. Spice is Nice. This daughter of Curlin, expensive daughter of Curlin and Dame Dorothy, looked like the real deal when she was unveiled to a maiden race, which she won at a mile by a dozen lengths or more. She just powered home. Last time she chased Tunnelist Shape. Tunnelist Shape was better in that race. Now we get a little bit of extra distance here for the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Spice is Nice has a little bit more experience. This will be her 3rd lifetime start. I like the way she finished that race. Sure, Tunnelist Shape was best, but Spice is Nice is in my eyes is a filly with huge potential. I want to see her go longer. This is a little bit longer for the mile 16th Gulfstream Park Oaks. I think she can get the job done, turn the tables in this grade too, but she is not the only one in here with some with some ability. So she's my top pick, but we have more to talk about.
Oh, geez, Brian, we're really being that agreeable. I feel the same way. All the things you said about Spice is Nice, I have down as my top pick in here. Good stakes experience in that Devona Dale, and for me, Tonalist Shape has got to be a huge favorite in this race. So I'm going to take a shot that, as Finite did at Fairgrounds, maybe Tonalist Shape is going to run up the track. I got Spice is Nice on top, and a couple of others that I like also.
Okay, just for big Finite fans out there, Matt didn't truly mean that she ran up the track, because she was right there at the 16th ball match. She faltered late, but she didn't quite run up the track. And I don't expect Tonalist Shape to run up the track. I'm hoping Tonalist Shape is even money or lower, but I'm not sure. I think there's going to be people out there that feel like we do. But anyway, Spice is Nice, breaking from the 5-hole. Matt and I are both honored to turn the tables on Tonalist Shape, but I want to talk about at least a couple other fillies in here, Matt. Lake Avenue looked so good last fall. That Demoiselle, her maiden win, and then the Demoiselle. Bill Mott has a daughter, Tappet, here, who we thought had a lot of potential at the start of the year, but her busher just was relatively ugly.
It was ugly, and I happened to have been at Aqueduct that day, and I was standing right by Bill Mott, watching the race in the theater, and he, he's kind of felt like he was baffled by Lake Avenue's performance in that race. So it didn't surprise me to see her coming back on basically 3 weeks rest in here. I guess in his mind, he's drawing a line through the race, giving her another shot, with racing maybe coming to an end soon. But I don't know. I'm just not going to use her in here.
Yeah, on the one hand, there's a lot to like there. She's obviously got talent. She's got speed at Gulfstream Park. It's never a bad thing. She can handle the distance. On the other hand, yeah, I think she'll run better than she did in the pusher, but I agree with you, Matt. It's hard to go from that performance in the pusher, where she was a well-beaten fourth, tiring pretty badly, to beating the likes of Toneless Shape and Spice's Night. Still, respect for her. And Matt, I've seen Belmont horses come out early in the year and not have their best, and then they just get better and better. Yeah. So Lake Avenue could improve for certain. And the other one I really do want to mention, and she hasn't gotten a lot of national ink yet, but I think she might be moving towards that. She's a daughter of Into Mischief. Her name is Lucretia. And Lucretia was mostly on the turf last year for trainer Arnaud Delacour. But her last 2 races, both on the dirt, both at Tampa Bay Downs, I don't think we should sleep on those, Matt. And I think she also could really be in the picture here. I kind of like this daughter of Into Mischief as 3rd or 4th choice.
Yeah, that's one of the horses that I've identified that I'm going to use also. And I agree. I was impressed with those performances at Tampa. Seems to be a horse going in the right direction.
Yeah, Dream Marie was a good 3rd last time behind Toneless Shape and Spice is Nice in the Devona Dale, but not a performance that I think, she's going to get even better and turn the tables this time. Nobody else in the field really does it for me, Matt. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to add in another one that I'm going to use is Swiss Skydiver for Kenny McPeak. I was last seen running 3rd in the Rachel Alexandra, behind Finite, who was winning there, and behind British Idiom. I thought that was a race that McPeak could build on in there, and maybe one that could get a piece in this if Toneless Shape does not run her race.
Well said, sir. If you remember, Swiss Skydiver was my long shot in that Rachel Alexandra, and I thought she did run a pretty good race, but on the other hand, I didn't think she was really putting much fear into Finite or even British Idiom. As a longer shot, she could improve a little bit off that race, and if Finite and British Idiom are a little bit better than the horses we're talking about in here, which is a possibility, Swiss Skydiver could be a live long shot. Thank you for adding her to our list, Matt, but I'm going to stick with Spice is Nice as my top pick. Toneless Shape, Lucretia underneath, maybe Swiss Skydiver, but Spice is Nice for me.
Yeah, my wager would be an exacta key box keying Spice is Nice with Swiss Skydiver and Lucretia.
Wow, we are really on the same page here, Matt. All right, now in other races happening at Gulfstream Park, Matt, we got some big names. I think we need to start with Zulu Alpha, who's running in the Pan American Kidney's Joy. It's a 1.5 miles on the turf. It's race 12, and it's a grade 2. Matt, if Zulu Alpha wins this race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, I think he's in the Horse of the Year race. And that sounds crazy, but with what's going on, who knows when the Horse of the Year race is going to end this year. The Horse of the Year race could end at March. I sure hope it doesn't, folks, but it's possible. And what Zulu Alpha has accomplished going into his 3rd race of the year is pretty remarkable. Yeah,
that's for sure, Brian. 2 big wins already. Won the Pegasus turf, and then came right back and won the Mac Diarmida at Gulfstream Park. And I guess the change of plans by Mike Maker is based on the fact that Zulu Alpha must have been doing really, really well coming out of the recent win, must be feeling really good. 7-year-old Brian. And, with turf horses, that 7-year-old number isn't as concerning. But, how many races can a 7-year-old string together? But I agree. Who knows when the next big race is going to be with the races, the big money, big races at Dubai being canceled and racing shutting down. As you said, I don't know when the next big race is going to be with these older horses. So trainer Mike Maker taking a shot in here. Zulu Alpha on PPs stands way above the field. But like I said, 7 years old. Who knows?
Yeah, and Matt, I was a teenager back in the days of John Henry, and he sure didn't slow down at 7. He got better. He only got better after 7. hey, Zulu Alpha is better than ever. He's a 7-year-old gelding, yes, the son of Street Cry. But he's been, last year was clearly his best year to date as a 6-year-old. Now he's better at 7. Those 2 races have really, and he was a very good, I know he was 4th, but it was a very good performance out in California in the Breeders' Cup Turf to end last year. But the Pegasus World Cup Turf and then the McDermott just were really strong, super efforts. One up the rail and the other one digging in on the outside against a horse who ran a big race. So for me, Zulu Alpha has been one of the best horses in America in 2020 so far. This is the weakest field he's faced. Any horse can lose, but I fully expect Zulu Alpha to win his 3rd straight graded stake. We know he likes Gulfstream Park's turf course, and if he does, you know, he's one of the, let's call him the horse of the first quarter, maybe. Zulu Alpha for trainer Mike Maker. Also on the card, Matt, in all these stakes you talked about, there's just a smorgasbord of stakes on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. There's some interesting returners that we want to highlight just a little bit. Let's talk about the Sir Shackleton. Several interesting horses in there, but none more interesting than Vekoma, Matt. Vekoma. We haven't seen Vekoma in years. Well, not quite years, but it was the first Saturday in May last year when Vekoma last ran. It's one of the horses really to beat. He's coming off a big bluegrass win. Now he's back.
Yeah, at Vekoma, we remember Vekoma from the Derby Trail yesterday with that unique running style of his. As you said, last seen finishing 12th in the Kentucky Derby. Had a long rest, coming back. He ran well right from the get-go last year. So winner of 3 of 5 starts. So it'll be fun to see Vekoma coming back.
Yeah, I was never a Kentucky Derby believer for Vekoma. His running style, I just didn't believe him going 10 furlongs. But you know, the Derby, all those horses, the off track, we can't hold that against Vekoma. Just like we can't hold it against a horse like By My Standards, who also didn't do much in the Kentucky Derby. But Vekoma was really, really good when I saw him at Keeneland the start before in the Bluegrass, his 4th lifetime race. And he won a stake up in New York before that. Vekoma is a nice horse, so it'll be good to see him back for trainer George Weaver, one of our old favorites, Matt. George Weaver running in the Sir Shackleton on Saturday at 7 furlongs. Tricky little spot to return, but we welcome back Vekoma, as we also should welcome back Newspaper of Record, Matt. She was the cat's meow, if you will, as a 2-year-old filly on the turf. Last year didn't quite go as planned for her, but still, she's only run 6 lifetime races, and she's been away for a long time. It'll be interesting to see what the Chad Brown trainee can bring to the table as a 4-year-old.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's with Newspaper of Record, it was a tale of 2 years. That 2-year-old campaign was perfect, a perfect 3 for 3, ending with a victory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. And then as a 3-year-old, 3 races, didn't get any wins, but as it turned out, ran into some pretty darn good horses in Concrete Rose and Cambria Park. But still, Chad Brown Turf and that resume, we all expected more victories from Newspaper of Record. So I'm kind of excited to see which Newspaper of Record we get, at least in this start on Saturday.
That's right. And, you know, her first 2 starts of the year, she lost to very good horses, Cambria Park and Concrete Rose. They weren't bad. And then she failed. She faltered, going longer maybe than she ever wants to or will ever do again in the Belmont Oaks. But I could still see where she had serious graded stakes potential even last year. And obviously, as a 2-year-old, she was just dominant. So Newspaper Record, a very interesting returner. She'll be running in the Sand Spring Stakes on Saturday. Yeah, Matt, this is a wonderful card at Gulfstream Park, and with so little out there for us to enjoy right now, hopefully this great card at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, Florida Derby Day, is something that we can all rally around and really enjoy. Before we end the show, let's backtrack a little bit to Fairgrounds last Saturday for Louisiana Derby Day, Matt. A couple of horses I think we should talk about are Wells Bayou, the front-running winner of the Louisiana Derby, And then By My Standards, who is back for trainer Brett Calhoun.
Yeah, well, it was, as it turned out, with the big races at Fairgrounds, it was a Brad Cox festival down there, with Brad winning 3 out of the 4 graded stakes races, including the very impressive victory by Wells Bayou in the Louisiana Derby. Stamped himself as a serious Derby contender, going down the road with tactical speed, being able to get the mile and 3/16 distance in the Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, everything you said, Matt. Mile 3/16 already under his belt. We both liked him. He took the race over early, and he never looked like a horse who was going to come back. So it was a nice move forward. I don't know if I like him as quite as much as horses like Tiz the Law or maybe Nadal or even the untested Charlton, but Wells Bayou certainly a top 10 3-year-old right now, and that was a strong win out of mile 3/16. That's a feather in his cap moving forward. I might have even been more impressed, though, with the 4-year-old performance. That was By My Standards, the son of Golden Sense, not trained by Brad Cox, but rather by Brett Calhoun, because his Kentucky Derby, he was a horse who turned some eyes when he got to Churchill Downs here off a Louisiana Derby win last spring. And for whatever reason, like I said a little bit earlier, the track with Vekoma or the 20 horses, he didn't run his best race. He was also, like Vekoma, put on the shelf after that. But his 2 return races at Fairgrounds have just been really good. He's got to prove it away from New Orleans. But I tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, these 2 races make him one of the best dirt horses in the country right now.
Yeah, that is for sure. And I said the exact same thing, Brian. He'll need to prove it when he moves away from the Fairgrounds. He, as you mentioned before, when we were talking about Vekoma, he had a long break off of the Kentucky Derby. It is such a tough race on some of these horses who are pushing it in terms of distance in the Derby after spending time on the Kentucky Derby trail. But the rest seemed to be everything that By My Standards needed, and those 2 races back have been just excellent.
Yeah, By My Standards. Hopefully the season will go on, and hopefully he'll get a chance to prove it against the very best handicap horses in America. All right, Matt, I already said my piece just a little bit. How about a parting shot from you, my friend?
Sure, Brian. Whatever happens with racing as we go down the calendar, be sure to enjoy this Florida Derby card, and HorseCenter will go on. Brian and I will have shows regardless of how many tracks are open. So please make sure you stay with us and stay safe. And as always, I want to thank Brett Workman, our producer, for putting together the show.
Yeah, thanks to Brett. Thanks to everyone there watching. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation, please do so. But even more importantly, do stay safe. As Matt said, that's the most important thing right now. We also want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. Matt and I will be back next week with another show. As Matt said, hopefully we'll be previewing the Santa Anita Derby 1 week from Saturday, and we'll be talking about the big races that happen at Gulfstream this Saturday. We'll see you then right here on HorseCenter.